the Queen has written to say, would you accept an OBE then? I said, what's an OBE? He said it's a huge thing. And then later on, I was so shocked to have the letter to say the Queen would like to offer the CBE for my work on anti-racism, on promoting inclusion, integration.
I'm Suzette Llewellyn.
I'm Suzanne Packer.
We're two actors and, more importantly, two friends who've been through life's ups and downs together over the last 30 years.
In this series, we invite some incredible people to our imaginary veranda to tell the stories of their lives.
This is Veranda Talk.
Professor Uzo Iwobi, OBE, thank you so much for joining us here at Red Bull London, and welcome to Veranda Talk.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
I just wanted to let everyone know about who you are and what your accomplishments are. You are a solicitor, an equalities practitioner. You were the former Specialist Policy Advisor for Equalities for the Welsh Government, an honorary fellow at the University of Wales, Trinity, St David's, and founder, secretary, and former chief executive of the Race Council, Cymru. You are also the vice president of the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama. You are a powerhouse. A phenomenal speaker, yes, indeed, a phenomenal speaker who is often called on to speak about current events and cultural change in society. So we are just really, really glad to have you here. And thank you very much for joining us here.
So, of course, Professor Uzo, I know you, but might be the first time you're getting to know Suzette since we invited you to contribute to our book, Still Breathing, 100 Voices on Racism. And we know that systemic racism has hit you almost straight away when you first arrived in this country. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit later on. But I'd actually like us to start about something that has more happy connotations. And that's you receiving your CBE. What was that experience like?
Honestly, just completely blown out of my mind. I think when I came from Nigeria, just over 30 years ago, married to Andrew Iwobi, I never, ever knew anything about awards or honours. And so the first time that somebody nominated me, I don't know who, but I heard it was when I had finished my time at the Commission for Racial Equality, where I served as a commissioner. I think the team there did that. And my husband called me. I was actually lecturing. And he said, can you step away? There's a very important letter that's come for you. And I stepped away. He said, what? Oh, that the Queen has written to say that, would you accept an OBE then? I said, what's an OBE? I had no idea. Wonderful. He said, it's a huge thing. And then later on during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, I was so shocked to have the letter to say, the Queen would like to offer the CBE for my work on anti-racism, on promoting inclusion, integration, and diversity in the UK. I was so touched. It takes somebody who is selfless to think of uplifting somebody else, and to take the time to write those forms, is really, really moving. I was delighted beyond words, because when I got to Windsor Castle, it was Prince William. And I said to him, this award should not be for me. It should be for the Windrush Cymru elders. They have never seen you. They have never shaken your hand like I am doing. Come to Wales, please, and honor the elders. And shock and surprise, he turned up with Princess Catherine, and he met 250 Windrush elders.
The fact that you said that you had to share this award with others, that is so you. Why particularly the Windrush community in Wales?
I think, I've been moved by their story. I've been moved by their sacrifices and the fact that the UK policies damaged so many of them. I know some who served in the military, in the army, who are now in their 80s and 90s, who were attempted deportation and who turned to drugs and alcohol abuse and left and lost their families. It was horrific what happened to them. And I think is a truly shameful era in the history of the United Kingdom. Even the Windrush scandal began. I went to see the Welsh Government, then First Minister Carwyn Jones, and I said to them, something needs to be done about the plight of the Windrush. And we need a public apology for the exclusion of Black, mixed heritage, and diverse ethnic servicemen and women who went to the wars and died. And because when they came back, those who lived came back, people like Patty Flynn had been campaigning for 27 years for the correction of this justice. So her family, she lost all the male members, all 5 of them died. And when the people came back to Cardiff, only the white survivors could march down the front of the bay and take a salute. No mixed race serviceman or woman, no Black, no diverse ethnic could march, only white survivors. So she felt that this was a slap in the face of people like her. And she shared her story with me. She was 80. For 3 years, we campaigned together. We got a national apology for all the biracial and mixed heritage people who died in Tiger Bay and across the whole of Wales. We had a peace bench installed in the Temple of Peace, and also we had the monument installed in Alexander Gardens, which is the absolute home of the national monument for Wales. And we wanted the one for the ethnic minority servicemen and women there. And amazingly, Patty lived to unveil that monument along with Betty Campbell's daughter, Elaine Clark, whose father died side by side with Patty's father on the ship as merchant seamen. Oh, wow. And so they lifted the cloth, and it was actually my boss in the Welsh Government, Minister for Social Justice, Jane Hutt, CBE, who insisted that that stone should be installed. And the Cardiff Council worked with us, with the Royal Commonwealth Society, the British Legion, and all the armed forces. So every year, because of Patty's work that we started to highlight, it is marked on the first Saturday that we go and lay the wreath and hold a service for the death. So it's been such a blessing that in my lifetime, and in the 3 years I served as an advisor to the First Minister, we published the first anti-racist action plan in Wales. And our First Minister made a public declaration that he wants Wales to be an anti-racist nation by 2030. He did the second thing that we'd been campaigning for, which was to install in law in Wales the teaching of Black history to every single school as mandatory. And then the third thing he did was to begin a record and a collection of all the trophies, structures, statues that honor Black, Asian, and minority ethnic people. It's incredible what Welsh Government have done. And I'm so delighted that I was in that space at that time with leaders with a social conscience who genuinely wanted to make change for all our people.
Yeah, it is incredible because that is not mandatory. Teaching Black history in England, for instance, is not mandatory. So it's incredible. And Wales really is leading the way. You came to Wales at the age of 23. Why did you particularly go to Wales at that time?
My husband is a lawyer and a qualified barrister. He came to Swansea because he got a job. Being of mixed heritage, he often came to London to visit his mother's family and to research in the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies. And he just saw this advert in a place called Swansea. And he called me. I was qualifying as a barrister. I was in the law school in Nigeria. And he said, do you know there's this job going in Swansea? Do you think we should try? Because we're newly married. We've never lived and never stepped out of Nigeria. And I said, yeah, try. And he went and he was shortlisted. And then he had a final interview with 2 other Welshmen. And he said, oh, I don't think they'll give a black person this job. But I'll try. Well, he got the job. And then he relocated. And that meant I could join him then as his wife after I was called to the bar. So I arrived in London, in Heathrow Airport, on the 7th of February, which was my birthday in 1993.
And then you went to Wales.
I came to Wales.
And then did you start practicing in Wales?
I tried to, because my father was a professor of crop science, and he is an academic to an inch of his life. And he believes, because in Nigeria, we don't have an income support, we don't have the NHS, we don't have, any support for citizens from the government, and you pay for schooling and everything. So as soon as you qualify, my father assigns 3 extended families to you to pay for them to go to school. So I had 3 people waiting on me to find funds to pay for them to go to school. I had to get a job, and I went to the job center, and the lady said to me, what's your name? I said, Uzo. It's short for Uzo Amaka, which means, it's an Igbo word, which means the doorway of blessing. And she said, sorry? I said, Uzo. U-Z-O? Oh, I can't say that word. Do you have an English name? I said, well, I was baptized a Catholic, but I'm a Pentecostal Christian. So I don't know if I can use that Linda, because I'm not a Linda. She said, oh, you better become a Linda, because here in Swansea, we don't use words of that nature. Nobody's going to call that word. So you better become a Linda. So I came in an Uzo and I left a Linda.
Ooh.
And I brought my call to bar certificate. I brought my law degree certificate. And I said, I'd love to practice law. My husband's a law lecturer. There are no jobs going at the university at the moment. Do you know any firm that I could go in, even to volunteer, to get into the system? I was horrified. The woman said to me, you can never get a job in the legal profession in Wales. You're black.
You sort of mentioned this with sort of a smile, a wry smile and a laugh. But what did that feel like?
Oh my gosh, my jaw literally dropped. My jaw hung open. I said, excuse me? She said, you will not get a job in the legal profession in Wales because you are black. As if I was dumb as well as deaf. Slow speaking. I was so shocked to the core of my being.
And then with all these qualifications, Uzo, you ended up working in a factory, is that right?
My first job was selling toys in Toys R Us. In fact, when I didn't believe her, because I'm a very friendly person. I thought, I'm going to try. And she said to me, right, go through the whole of Walter Road from number 1 to 100 is all full of solicitors. All the best. Bye next. And that was it. Dismissed me. So off I went, photocopied in a library, and wrote a beautiful cover letter, which I printed, over 55 applications, and only one firm invited me for an interview. And it was a white man in St. James Garden. And he had advertised a civil procedure job. I thought, I can eat this with my eyes closed. And I went. 1.5 hours later, where I was interviewed on the criminal law, the legal theory of law, which is jurisprudence, company law, nothing on civil procedure. And I thought, we've gone round the houses. It's over 1.5 hours later, and I'm still pumping out all these questions and answers. And when is he going to ask me about civil procedure? And at the end, he said, goodness, you're a very intelligent woman. I said, thank you. Does that mean I got the job? Oh, no. I just wanted to know what they teach you in that country in the name of law.
And no job.
No job. And the woman said to me, I told you to forget that you're a lawyer and barrister. Nobody cares. This is Wales. You need to not show that qualification because they'll say you're too qualified. You just need to bring your GCSEs, bring your A-levels and show them and get a job on the shop floor and work your way to the top. I said, fine. So my first job was working in Toys R Us. I got a night shift job packing crisps in Walker's factory, 10 to 6.
So at this point, you've got 2 jobs.
2 jobs.
That you are well and truly overqualified for.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And within the first year, I won Employee of the Year in Toys R Us. But you know, the racism I felt and faced on that till, and I was expecting our first child. I didn't tell the shop because they would fire me. Nobody wanted a pregnant person because one, they'd be worried about maternity pay. Though I was only part-time, I was ready to please to keep that job because I had 3 people I was paying for to go to school in Nigeria. And it was really difficult. I remember one man walking up to the till and I was asked to train somebody else on how to check the money, make sure it comes through. The man turned to me and he said to me, "Why are you interfering in my purchase?" I said, "Sorry?" He said, "Why are you talking to that girl about my money?" I said, "Because I'm meant to supervise her and I'm meant to teach her how to check the... Do you think I stole the money? You effing black, blah, 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 blah." And honestly, the language was so bad and putrid. I was terrified. I was heartbroken and I was sweating because I was 7.5 months pregnant. My boss didn't even know. He said, "You go back to the jungle from where you came. We don't need the likes of you in this place." So she was so loud that the manager ran towards us and said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I'm just trying to show this white lady who's just started work, and I said the lady's name, just how to use the pen and check because it's mint and it was stuck together, And he said, "I don't want this black bitch handling my money. Get her out of my sight." And my manager said to him, "We don't tolerate language of this nature. Here is all your money. You can't have any toys. Leave the store." That is one of the strongest protective reactions I've ever in my life had from a white manager. He said, "Come and have a cup of tea. You all right?" And the man was leaving the store shouting, "I will get you. I will get your family. Know where you live. I'll hound you down, you black bitch." Oh my God. I remember my hands were going like this. I was shaking.
Of course.
It was horrific.
Was there ever a time when you just thought, I have to leave?
Do you know when my son was locked in a school toilet by 4 white children? 1 held the door shut and 3 attacked Chuka like a pack of animals. They kicked and punched him and they said, "We don't want a black boy in this school." He and my daughter were the only black children in the whole school. He was absolutely battered and he fought his way out of there. 40 minutes, they could have killed him. My husband was called because I was in London on that day and my husband said, "Come straight home. Chuka's been seriously injured and we're going to the hospital to check him out." So when I came back, Andrew said to me, the worst thing was that when he said to the teacher, "How did you not know that 5 children were missing from your class for 40 minutes? They could have killed him." And the teacher said, "I've got 45 kids to look after. I'm doing my very best. These kids come from their homes. They're racist. They behave in this manner. We tell them the rules of the school. I'm doing my best. If you're not happy with how I'm dealing with it, you can take him out of the school." It was the headmaster that intervened and said to me, "But please I apologize. I take responsibility for everything that was said. It is utterly reprehensible what happened to your son. The parents of these boys have been informed. The boys are going to be disciplined. and I'm appealing to you. You have 2 children here. Your daughter has been very happy with us. I said, but you like my daughter because she's winning awards in music for the school. And also she's lighter skinned. And I found that the darker skinned you are, the more racism you're facing. She's more like my husband's coloring. And she didn't have as bad a time in that primary school as my son did. But overall, they kept saying to her, we don't want you winning any more music awards because you're taking the chance away from those of us who are born here. She said, but I was born here. Yeah, but you're not from here because your family are not from here. You know, you need to stop winning awards and give others a chance. And I think for me, the day that I saw Chuka in that hospital really beaten up on a bed at 7, I said to Andrew, we need to go back home. I said, we need to go back home. These children are not safe. And do you know the interesting thing? Chuka said to me, Mom, I hate white people. I was alarmed because all he heard during the beating was, we don't want a black person. And I had to think quickly on my feet. And I said, but you don't, because your grandma is white and you love her. They didn't attack you because they're white. They attacked you because they're bad children. They have not been raised very well. It was actually when Chuka returned home, he was only 7, my daughter was 8. We said to them, we are thinking maybe we should go back to Nigeria because you would have a very wonderful time. Everybody would look like you. And the children said, but this is home to us. And Nigeria is a visiting destination. We were born here. This is all we know. Why can't we work to change attitudes here? My daughter piped up. I couldn't believe that they wanted to continue to stay here with all that they had both been through. And so I thought, I cannot remain passive. Now I'm going to become a serious activist. It was in 1995 that I got my first law lecturing job. So I taught law for 9 years in that school. And then I moved to work for police as a lawyer. They called it race and diversity trainer at the time. And then from there, I interviewed successfully to work in the Home Office. And that was on the Police National Diversity Team. On the 1st of April, I took the elders in a coach with 63 of them to the same Home Office where I worked years ago to meet the Minister for Citizenship and Migration, Dr. Seema Malhotra, and to meet Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary. I cried. I walked into that building and I used to be on the 4th floor. And I remembered going in 2005 when I was there. I remembered seeing Charles Smith for lunch and I marched up to him with my tray. My colleague, Avril Benjamin, was horrified. I can't believe you've gone over. Civil servants don't disturb them. I said, stop it. You only live once. And I went to him and said, Charles Smith, so this is where you eat. Now, let's sit down and have lunch. He looked so shocked. The look on his face, this African woman in my face, disturbing me my lunch hour. I thought, if you don't dare, if you don't ask, you don't get. And the worst he can say is no. And he did turn to me, he said, actually, yes, this is where I buy my lunch, but I was going to eat in my office. I said, oh, right. Well, I know we're not invited in your office because we're the minions. I said, but remember that you can support people in Wales who came as asylum seekers and have been waiting for 8 years for their matters to be resolved. He said, really? Write to me and ask for amnesty and put everybody's name. And do you know we did that? And he gave a pardon or amnesty agreement for 48 families in Swansea who were from Congo, who were from Zimbabwe. All of them got their cases looked into because the UK kept them waiting for 8 years with no response.
You know, it doesn't surprise me. You're not a person who's slow coming forward.
No. No.
We hope you're enjoying our conversation with Professor Uzo Iwobi.
Professor Iwobi made a contribution to the book we wrote in response to the murder of George Floyd, Still Breathing, 100 Black Voices on Racism.
The book features 100 essays from musicians, members of parliament, poets, artists, athletes, civil servants, doctors, and lawyers. They seek to educate, to bear witness, and to offer hope for a better future.
You can find Still Breathing 100 Black Voices at all good online retailers.
Uzo, how did the Race Equality Action Plan come about?
It started out as Race Equality Action Plan, but we changed it to an anti-racist action plan halfway through. It was when I went to the Welsh Government as a specialist policy advisor on equalities. I sat down with Jane Hart, the Minister for Social Justice, who was my then direct report. And I told her the story of Chuka, which I've just told you. I said to her, Minister, I've spoken to civil servants. There is not even in existence in Welsh Government a race equality scheme. Nothing. There is no plan. There is no strategy. There is no policy. There's nothing. It's all disappeared from when the Commission for Racial Equality ended and shut its door. Gone. There is nothing. We need a race equality plan, I said. So she discussed it with the civil servants. Oh, no. We're not going down that road. We're going to mainstream. I was very deflated, but you know me, I never give up. I'm just like a gnat. I keep coming back to bug people. And as it happened, next thing, the pandemic hit. So the pandemic hit in Wales. Professor Keshav Singhal produced a tool kit that was used in Wales to protect ethnic minority people from death by exploring if you have any comorbidities, then you should be moved to a place where you're not in the front of exposure. In fact, one of our closest Windrush members, a young woman who was a single mom with 2 children, died. Donna Campbell, she had just recovered from cancer treatment. So she had a comorbidity. And she didn't realize that that would be affected by serving people and helping people and caring for people as a nurse in Velindre. And she caught COVID and was gone within 2 weeks. Her daughter, who's 17, was left without a mother, and her son, who was 12. And that began to hit all of us. And people were telling Jane Hart that they are facing racism, that people are abusing them. Patients said, "Take your Asian hand off me. I just want a white doctor." You know, the kind of trauma and abuse that people were having. So Race Council wrote to the then First Minister, Professor Mark Drakeford, to call for a committee urgently to advise him, from professors of medicine who are Black, Asian, minority ethnic, and researchers to come and advise him. So Judge Singh, the chair of Race Council, was appointed by Mark Drakeford as the chair of the advisory committee. It was during that time that Professor Emmanuel Ogbonna, the first Black professor in Wales, was also appointed to head up a subcommittee to look at the social impact and why Black, Asian, and minority ethnic people were dying more. It was 4-1. So they thought initially it was genetic. And so they were looking at this and going, why is that happening? Something is wrong. So he worked with other researchers to write a paper and explore scientific facts of what was going on. And it turns out that it wasn't at all genetic. It was actually because of socioeconomic factors, because many of the doctors and nurses were taking on extra shifts. So they're longer exposed, they're not rested enough, and they had comorbidities. And so the virus was affecting them. And then the clincher was when George Floyd died in public in such a dramatic manner. And nobody could stop a Black man being killed in front of somebody videoing his death. I think the minister called a meeting and said, we need urgently to implement a strategy. We need to put something in place. And I want to meet our community members, because then Black Lives Matter started protesting. There were breakouts in protests right across the whole of Wales. And it was so shocking, the strength of it. And would you believe that later on, I met with every single protest leader in Wales, and 62% of them were white. I thought it would be Black people that were leading all the protests, but it was a lot of white people.
A lot of your professional life is so embedded in race equality work. If you didn't have that distraction, what do you think you would have been doing?
Oh my gosh. I would have probably been experiencing and exploring the creative industry much more. My daughter and I have just launched the Black Welsh Music Awards in Wales. We have launched MOBO in Wales.
Fabulous.
And we did the pre-launch with Levi Roots, who's our patron.
Wonderful.
And Sir Nicholas Young, and my uncle from Nigeria, Dr. Tony Eze, who is funding 2 international artists to come and unveil and perform. The awards will be on the 4th of October, 2025 at the Royal Welsh College. And the royal family from Southeast Nigeria coming. And we might have our royal family in the UK come as well.
Brilliant.
But I know the Welsh Government ministers are all over this. They've all got it in their diary. So it's a big moment for Wales. We've never had music of Black origin celebrated in Wales. Like MOBO goes everywhere. And these are the kinds of things I would have loved to use my time to do.
You mentioned that you had 3 people that you had to be supporting when you came over, by hook or by crook. Where are those people now? Because it sounds like you come from a very academic family. You mentioned your uncle, your father. Those 3 people you were supporting, have they moved on to the world of academia also?
Andrew and I ended up paying for the 3 of them. Ogonna Anike is one of them. Today, she is an administrator who served the governor of a state in Nigeria. And she's incredibly powerful woman. She's built her own house, which is rare for people who didn't have the best start in life. So her sister qualified as an accountant and we paid for her. She went to work with the Reverend Sisters in a convent. She's got a family with 3 children now. I have to say she's working in the civil service, but life is very hard for her. And usually my dad says, once you graduate, you got to pay for someone else. And that's how we've educated my dad ended up linked to the support education, starting a business of 183 people in his lifetime. My father is a remarkable man. Yeah. I've never met a philanthropist like him. And he was just a lecturer and a professor of crop science. Never had money to spare because every penny he had was given to others to help them. The final person that we helped was actually an individual who is part of the extended family in our village rather than directly related to us. So we paid the school fees. They went to school. But again, the hardship of Nigeria hasn't improved their lives. There's another person that we took on, my Andrew and I, here in Wales, who I'd like to talk about. We met her in Swansea. She's a Nigerian girl. She fell into hard times and couldn't finish funding her schooling in Swansea University. And she came to live in our home. We gave her accommodation free and food for a year and a bit. And I put her in charge of the African Community Center, which is the first charity I set up. She began to manage that. And then she also coordinated Race Council. Today, that girl is named as one of the top 5 journalists in Nigeria. And she is flying. She's winning award after award. Her name is Ayo Thompson, Ayo Mairo Esse, and she's the TV anchor and journalist on Arise Television, which is the equivalent of CNN or BBC. And she is on fire. And she turned around and said to my daughter, come and perform for the first time live on television. I mean, she's the anchor and the host for the equivalent of The Voice or, Britain's Got Talent, where you can be paid 1 million per show.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is my little Ayo.
That is incredible. Phenomenal. That
really
is absolute. And congratulations.
Yeah.
Uzo, you've been on our veranda sharing your, obviously, some of them very painful stories, but some really heartwarming ones too. So what does that veranda look like for you? What's around you? What do you see? And what can you hear? What can you smell? Who's with you perhaps? And what are you enjoying while you're on your veranda?
My veranda right now is surrounded with the love of God. His presence, his peace, his power just pouring through me and enabling me to create and support and enable and uplift. In my veranda, I have my beautiful husband, the best human being in the world, with the cutest, most darling face ever. He has put up with me for over 30 years and my energy and my creative buzz. Many men would have given up. Get away, you're not interested. You just, here for a stable life. But he's sitting right beside me. In my veranda, I see my beautiful daughter, who has come through her troubles and every day stands firm, still having therapy, still creating music, and achieving her best life as the first Black African girl in Wales to have 9 consecutive tracks on the BBC Radio Wales A-list. She's an artist that has composed music that the Royal Air Force have performed, the orchestra. They performed 4 of her original compositions. She composes for films as well. She composed for the Windrush film that was filmed, Waterfall. Her name is Ife. She's sitting by my side, beautiful, single. So if there are any wonderful, beautiful boys out there who's hearing this veranda, we're open for applications. On my veranda is my beautiful boy, the best son in the world. He's now a solicitor and he's working in Cardiff and he's married to the most lovely GP. They have a darling, tiny little gorgeous pumpkin. Her cheeks are so pink all the time, like my mother-in-law. She's so fair-skinned. And her name is Cassie, Kasarachi, which means tell God all about you, for he cares for you. She's a darling girl. She's nearly 2. And the little baby on the way would have been born and is in my veranda. And around my family, I would definitely put Ayo Thompson. She has been a core part of my family and her media work inspires me every day. In my veranda, I would have my darling mother-in-law, Letty, who left Britain as a young Jewish girl with a beautiful Black man and traveled to Nigeria in the 50s when there was no aircraft, and she went by ship and had 9 children and gave me the best husband in the world. My father-in-law has died, so he won't be on my veranda, but Mama Letty will. Now, my mom, who is now suffering with a bit of vascular dementia, and who was the first female headmistress in Eastern Nigeria, who was the first woman to go to school in the whole village, who inspired me to fight for what I believe and never give up. She would be on my veranda and we would be looking, we would read our Bible, we would sing songs of victory. And I would say my Windrush elders would be invited to sit with me. There are many of them. So this veranda is long and big, but I do nothing without the Windrush elders. Because when some of our community were very mean and said some horrible things, the Windrush elders rose like a massive torrent of protection and support for me. And they faced them and said, Uzo, keep quiet, I will address. And all of them, 35 leaders, wrote their names and challenged this outrage. And that ended. The elders are a treasure in my life. I love them to bits. And our next trip is to somewhere bigger than they have ever been. So I'll keep them guessing for a while.
Beautiful. Well, in unity, there is strength. And thank you so much for being part of our podcast, our Veranda Talk. It's been an absolute joy, Uzo. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Professor Uzo Iwobi.
If you did, why not click, share, and send it to someone you think would enjoy it too? Or they're able to find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
I'm Suzette Llewellyn.
And I'm Suzanne Packer.
Veranda Talk is a Bengo Media production.